Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ty and this is Reality Table Talk. I'm here to share my thoughts and opinions on the latest episodes of the reality shows we all love to watch. Now, my thoughts are my thoughts and the reviews I share are from my perspective, but I can guarantee that at least a few of us are thinking the same things while we're watching these shows. If you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're a return viewer, thank you so much for joining me again. And y'all, I am here with a whole new review for the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 16, episode 11. And we open this episode with Angela and Charles catching some rooftop vibes in the A. They're ordering some food and some drinks. And Angela is telling us that Charles is a retired pension earning NBA player, which we already know. But he also owns multiple car washes in New York State and has been a coach for the Killer Threes within the Big Three basketball league since 2017. So while they're waiting for their chicken and steak tacos, they're talking about Charles's team next upcoming game and who they're playing. They're discussing which team player Joe Johnson plays with. And Charles said he plays with the Dallas Power, and Angela is disputing it. She says, no, he's been with the D&B trilogy. And Charles says, he's always been with Power. Angela says, well, let's bet. And Charles is like, how are you going to tell me? I just watched him play. He doesn't play for trilogy. And Angela corrects herself and says, oops, triplets, my bad. He played for the Chicago Triplets, but now Joe Johnson plays for the Dallas Power. So Angela always thinks she knows everything, child, but she knows not a thing. Charles is joining Angela in her confessional when Angela tells us that going back and forth with Charles is their love language. He's sitting right there next to her, and he's like, no, it's not. She says, I'm giving him an out. He doesn't understand that I'm giving him an out here. And Charles says, I don't want an out. I don't need an out. So up on the rooftop, Angela tells Charles to give her a kiss. And Charles is like, why do you need a kiss? I swear, sometimes Charles is like, he's sick of Angela. Anyway, he goes ahead and he leans in very reluctantly, but he does it. And back in the confessional, the producers ask Charles if he loves Angela. He says, huh? The producer asks again, do you love Angela? And he's laughing. And Angela says, the producer doesn't want people to think you don't love me. Angela, the producers or you, girl? The producer steps in and tries to clarify what she's asking. So she's like, no, I'm just trying to, no, he can just, no, he can do whatever he wants. He can say whatever he wants. So then Charles is like, oh, okay, so then next question. So back up on the rooftop, Angela says, Ish hit the fan with her sister when she and her daughter Amari got into it several weeks ago. She and her sister have avoided one another to avoid further conflict, but now Angela is telling Charles she probably needs to call her. Angela says her sister doesn't appreciate all that she's done for her, and Charles says, I've been through something similar. And Angela says, well, how do you handle it? And Charles says, I keep walking the other way. Y'all, I wasn't too sure about Charles initially. You know, he just came off kind of grumpy to me. But now I see it. He just ain't got time for the BS, and I can get with that. I can truly dig it. He's straightforward. He's a straight shooter. Absolutely no chaser. So he tells Angela, you keep giving into that situation and it's going to get worse. You got to let them hit the wall. They got to learn. And Angela says, but what if it's your sister? When Charles says, it don't matter. Yes, baby. Listen, we are not talking about little kids here. We're talking about grown individuals. Listen, I've experienced something similar as well. And I'm going to tell you what. Some people will use and use and use you until you're all used up. Okay, they will use you all the way up and then some. And then they'll walk away and go on to the next, leaving you high and dry. And damn that, sibling or not, you can help where you can, right? but not with everything and not all of the time. And I get it's hard when it comes to your family, but that's what boundaries are for. That's when they need to come into play and be set because, in all honesty, family will use you the most. And without those boundaries, child, they'll leave you completely depleted. So in her confessional, Angela says she likes to take a softer approach when dealing with folks, but Charles goes straight for the jugular, child. And Charles gives her this look like, yeah, okay, all right. So she asks Charles, do you think I can hold my own? And he says, yes, with another female. And she's like, well, what else did you think I was talking about? And he's like, well, okay. Angela says, Charles, just have my back. Then she looks at the camera and smiles, all prim and proper like. And he says, well, I can sit behind you if you want me to have your back. And Angela starts cracking up, and so did I, y'all. They are hilarious. On the rooftop, Angela says for her mother's sake, she's made a date with her mother so they can talk about everything going on and bring some peace back to her family. And Charles says he has peace. He's seen a lot, and his family was Tyler Perry before Tyler Perry. Now, y'all know how these Tyler Perry movies and plays are filled with all kinds of inner family turmoil. So yeah, if it's like that, then Charles sure has seen a lot. You know, I'm not a fan of Angela on this particular show. I'm not a fan of her on The Housewives. And I know a lot of people would disagree, but I personally am just not feeling her here because she's just way too messy with these other women. But now, if Charles and Angela have their own show, I would be tuned into that joint every week, y'all. I swear I would be sitting there just waiting for the next episode because this here, these two on this rooftop and in this confessional, it's straight comedy. They are hilarious. Y'all, am I alone in this? Would y'all watch if they have their own show? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But anywho, Scene 2. Miss Cynthia Bailey, with her fabulous self, is meeting about a bar and a restaurant with my favorite, Shamia. It's the day after the Pampered by Portia event, and Cynthia asks Shamia how she's doing, and Shamia says she couldn't really sleep the night before. On her way to Portia's event, Shamia just had a bad feeling, and that was her gut, okay? Those were her instincts trying to protect her. And she says that she was feeling sad and she could not figure out why. So she sent a text to her mother asking her mom to pray over her. And Shamia shows this text to Cynthia. And her mom replied right away and said, I'll pray for you now, baby. So Shamia said she was blindsided by what went down at the event. And Cynthia, in her very empathetic way, says, I'm so sorry, Shamia. Shamia says for Portia to question her in front of these other ladies, it was like these other women were the jury. And she would have thought Portia would have discussed things directly with her. So it was very disheartening. And Cynthia is trying to figure out how all of this happened in the first place. And Shamia says that things that she mentioned to Angela got taken back to Portia, but were laid out all wrong. Her words got twisted, and that she would never have a conversation about Portia with Angela. What happened is that Shamia was being told Portia is not your friend. And Shamia corrected it and said, no, Portia is my friend. But Shamia has been questioned by the ladies in the group asking if she's sure Portia is her friend because Portia doesn't support her. So flashback to the bank dinner when Portia insisted Drew was singing on Shamia's song instead of Shamia. Shamia says she was hurt by some of the things Portia did, but she always downplayed it. And Cynthia said she's been through something similar with one of her castmates, with RealiTea, Nene Leakes, and she would react in the same way. Shamia says the other ladies don't understand the friendships. And in Cynthia's confessional, she says Shamia and Portia's friendship reminds her of she and Nene's friendship. And it's hard to go from speaking on the phone with someone several times a day to being in the same friend circle, being out with the circle, and not even speaking to one another. So Cynthia says to Shamia that it's hard to have the conversation with the person that is supposed to be your friend and to ask them if they're really your friend. Shamia says it goes deeper than just this because Miss Diane, Portia's mother, told Portia she didn't know how to accept Shamia. Portia and Shamia's mothers were friends back in the day, but something happened within that friendship that Shamia will not talk about, and it caused a rift between them. So Portia told Shamia that Miss Diane advised her to be careful around Shamia because she can't be trusted and that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Shamia says that was hurtful. And yes, I agree. That is some hurtful-ish. And how y'all were even able to maintain a friendship as long as y'all did, knowing that was being said about you is beyond me. And for Portia to feel it was cool to share that with you, Shamia, that to me says that she's truly not taking your feelings into account here at all. I mean, it's like she was intentionally trying to hurt you by telling you this. Or was she testing you to see how much you would take? That to me is foul, okay? That's some nasty work. So now Shamia says what happened between her mom and Portia's mom has nothing to do with Portia and Shamia, and this is true. The caveat here, though, is how Portia is treating you. And I'm sorry, but if my friend came to me and told me their mom was warning them about hanging with me because of X, Y, and Z, well, as much as I love my friend, I'm gonna have to protect my peace and let she and her mama do their thing up over there, because how dare someone who loves and cares about you come back at you with that bone? Now, Cynthia says she's sure Shamia and Portia will be able to work through things, and Shamia says she feels a lot lighter. So Cynthia says Portia and Shamia genuinely seem happy when they're together. And Shamia says Portia brings her so much joy. And Shamia, that was such a beautiful statement right there. To say that Portia brings you joy, that's just not a light word. That word there, joy, that goes deep. She brings you immense happiness. So, Shamia, that was sincere. Cynthia says she wants a Shamia Portia friendship. And Shamia says, well, hell, I might be up for grabs here in a minute. Scene 3. Before we get into scene 3, we see Kelly at Nana's overseeing things here at her restaurant. Britt is at home with Mike, picking out an outfit to wear to her friend's wedding in Napa. And Shamia is at the studio with her family, getting ready to pick out her single. Nana's Chef Trent, got the chicken and waffles looking just right. Britt is trying to decide whether or not to wear an all-red dress or an animal print. And Shamia tells her family picking out her single is bittersweet because Portia is not there, and the friendship is hard. Her mom says, and it should not be hard. And her sister Tawana says, we've seen this friendship going sideways for a long time. Shamia says she feels like she's the only one working at it. So now to jump into scene 3. Cynthia, Angela, and Portia, they meet up at Bolero to have a cool little mini girls outing. And I say mini because the other ladies were not there. It was just those 3. Portia walks in wearing this turquoise, peach belted bodysuit number, hugging Cynthia and Angela before she puts her bag down and she starts twerking. She starts twerking that thing all up in Bolero. In Cynthia's confessional, she says, have you seen Portia's ass? That thing is not to be contained, child. It's to be out here free, honey. Angela's asking if they could put bumpers in their bowling lane, child. And Portia says, like, what they use for kids? And Angela is like, oh, that's what those are for. Girl, Angela, child, good night. One minute you're hot flashing and the next you're asking about using bumpers while you bowl. But when I saw how Angela was tossing that bowling ball down that lane, and I do mean she tossed it, y'all. She didn't just roll it. She tossed it down that lane. I got it. And yep, she needs the bumpers. She absolutely needs them. Now, Portia could have used the bumpers as well and could have if they weren't already on her ass. Angela said, don't give me an old ball now. And Portia says, but you like old balls. Now, y'all, I know this was some little fun shade, okay, a little light shade, a little dig at Charles. But now, Portia, just a few episodes ago, you were down there at that pool in Nashville talking about how you should just go ahead and hop up on them balls. So, I guess maybe Angela isn't the only one who likes old balls here. Anywho, Cynthia asked Portia about PJ. And Portia says PJ is very sensitive now because Portia's been leaving the house more and more. Now she's actually having to go into the office to work with this whole Simon situation and this divorce. PJ has been asking where Simon is because she misses him. And she calls him Papa and says Papa's been gone at work way too long and it's time for him to come home. And y'all, this made me sad. You know, kids, they see and they hear everything. They pick up on so much, and the things we as adults may feel they're not affected by are things that actually affect them the most. So it was really sad hearing this one. You know, it was really sad hearing how PJ is sad she misses her papa. You know, Portia and Simon, it wasn't a fly-by-night thing. So Simon was around PJ. PJ got used to him being there. Y'all, that was just really, really sad to me. Cynthia says, Portia, you've got a lot going on and you don't always have to be the strong one. Portia says, that's why I can say that with this whole Shamia thing, I'm not strong enough to deal with it right now. I'm fragile. Cynthia says she told Shamia that maybe a little time and space is probably good for them right now, and Portia agreed. Angela says working towards having peace is a process. Well, Angela, you should know since you played a role in the destruction that's happened here. Not the only player, but you did play a role. Portia says she wanted her event to be about bringing the women together and having a peaceful moment. And she doesn't understand how she's being made to look like she's a bad friend and how Shamia is loyal to a fault. So Angela asked Portia how that made her feel. Portia says she tried to be the best version of herself, but going through this divorce has not allowed her to show up for her friends the way that they need her right now. Mentally, she can't deal with anything else and says she doesn't have the capacity to lose her best friend right now. She's already divorcing her husband. She does not want to divorce her friend. And she's hoping she and Shamia can talk it through and lean in on the friendship and truth they've had. Scene 4. We see Drew in the back of her car, leaving her lawyer's office, FaceTiming her mother. Now, y'all, Drew's mama is almost 80 years old. And when she answers Drew's FaceTime call, she done answered on the iPad and the cell phone, child. Now, I can't get my mama to answer a regular phone call on her cell. I mean, hell, she can rarely answer her home line and forget about a FaceTime call. She'll be up here calling a text and email. And she thinks email and Gmail are two different things. And child, Drew's mom is a little bit more advanced than mine. And I'm going to just leave it at that. Drew says that even though her mom is still dealing with the death of her husband, Drew's father, she will stop and drop everything to be there for her. And yes, y'all, that is how my mama is too. And you know what? Maybe even a little bit more so now that my dad has transitioned. Anyway, Drew tells her mom she just left an emergency meeting with her lawyer, Tanya, because Ralph and his attorney are trying to have Tanya recused from her case in her divorce from Ralph. In a phone call that Drew received from her business partner, Aisha, during that whole Pampered by Portia event, Drew was told about this along with Ralph trying to claim he's the rightful owner of Juice-Dora LLC, which she incorporated in 2005. So now Ralph was supposed to turn in his financials, which he had not done by their last court hearing. So a new court hearing or a new court date was set for which Ralph is to turn over his financials. And I hope he finally does. We don't need your 5th grade drawings, Ralph. We don't need your receipt from Trader Joe's. We just need them financials, okay? Because he had not done this for that previous court hearing, Drew is saying that a new company was created And it's because of this that Ralph's team filed a motion to recuse Tanya from the case. So he's basically trying to get her taken off the case altogether. Now, Ralph wants 40% of Juicadora LLC, and now he also wants 40% of this new company. Drew says that this has completely thrown her off because Ralph is doing well financially. And I'm really wondering how Drew knows this because she just said that she doesn't know any of his financial details and they have separate accounts. So, Drew says she's providing for the kids 100%. And then Drew's mom says that Ralph isn't providing any financial child support. And as a matter of fact, Drew's family has been helping her out to take care of the kids. Ralph has also changed the code to the security system without Drew's knowledge. So y'all, when Drew got home one night at around 1 a.m., she could not get into her own house. She had to go to a hotel and she had to wait for him to get home. When he got home, he went in through his own separate basement side door entrance because y'all know he's banished down to the basement. And then he came up to let her in. And she says that now, she don't want to see his ass at all. He better keep his ass down there in that basement. She doesn't want to run into him anywhere in that house. Not in the kitchen, not in the living room. She don't want to see him whatsoever. Drew's mom says he doesn't realize how he's affecting these kids with his actions. And in her confessional, Drew said that at the end of the day, she and Ralph have to maintain some level of respect for one another so that they can co-parent these children. But divorce brings out the worst in people. It's just like when someone passes. People's feelings are hurt, egos are bruised, they feel entitled, and some will go for blood and not give a damn how anybody else is affected, not even the kids. It's all about inflicting pain on the person they feel is inflicting pain on them. It turns into a battle, and he's out for blood, baby. Ralph wants to win. Drew says she just wants to move on because she is drained. And Drew's mom says she's going to continue to pray. So Drew says, keep praying, mama. Pray for everybody, even my enemies. Just pray for them. Scene 5. Angela's mother, LaMargaret, drops by the Oakleys to talk to Angela. LaMargaret says she just got the keys for her new home today. And Angela is like, well, what about the old house? So Angela bought a home in Atlanta for her mother and her sister to live in. Angela said it's always been a dream of hers to buy her mom a home, so she was ecstatic when she was able to do so. LaMargaret says she appreciated that Angela bought her that house, but now she wants to become more self-reliant because Angela already has so much going on and has a lot on her plate. Angela says she paid about $490,000 for that home, but now she feels like her efforts were in vain. Although she is happy because she doesn't have to take care of her mother and her sister any longer, but it's painful. So now Angela wants to talk to her mom about the argument Amari and her sister got into. Flashback to the car ride home after Amari and Angela met for coffee a few episodes ago. If y'all remember, Angela tried to play it cool when she and Amari left that coffee shop that day. But in the car ride home after that scene, Angela was on the phone with LaMargaret trying to get down to the bottom of what happened. She was upset that her mom didn't say anything to her sister about speaking to Amari the way that she did in the moment, because it reminded Angela of how LaMargaret maybe didn't speak up for her in the past. And LaMargaret said she didn't say anything because she was actually in shock with everything that was going on. So now back at Angela's house, Angela says, we need to get this out. Even though I feel like you're always in the middle, I need you to ride for me. And I know you have in the past with Charles. And then LaMargaret says, and I'll do it again. So Angela is asking what happened between LaMargaret and Charles to make LaMargaret stop speaking to Charles because she hasn't spoken to him in 3 years. LaMargaret says Charles said something about Angela needing to clean up. And y'all know that Charles is a neat freak. He likes everything clean, honey. And so for LaMargaret, that was it, baby. She was not afraid to let Charles have it that day. She says, "You do not talk about my child." So again, y'all, this incident happened 3 years ago. So, but now LaMargaret wants to write Charles a letter to apologize. And she calls him her son in love, even though they're almost the same age. So LaMargaret threw a little bit of shade up in there. And Angela was like, don't talk about his age. And LaMargaret says, "Well, I won't do it to his face." So Angela says, "Well, you know what? It's going to be okay. And I love you, Mom." And LaMargaret says, "I love you too." But y'all, it doesn't seem like much was resolved here regarding Amari and Angela's sister. Like, absolutely nothing. Maybe this is a conversation Angela needs to have directly with her sister, because I do get that Angela doesn't want to put her mom in the middle of things. But for Amari's sake, this needs to be addressed and resolved. So y'all, after I watched this episode, I did go online and I saw a post that Angela made. She let us all know that unfortunately, LaMargaret has passed away. The scene we saw LaMargaret in during this episode was filmed over a year ago, and she has passed away since then. I do want to extend my sincere condolences to Angela and her entire family, because I can only imagine how difficult it has been to lose your matriarch. You know, I lost my dad 3 years ago, and I'm still struggling every single day. So I can't even imagine what Angela and her family are going through right now. And, it was just a blessing that we were able to see Angela with her mother on this show. We could definitely see how much love is there between these two women. And y'all, LaMargaret looked beautiful. She had glam and everything going on, okay? That hair was laid, that makeup was laid. She looked beautiful, and she just came across to me as a beautiful lady with a beautiful spirit and soul. So, y'all, rest in peace, LaMargaret. I hope you're resting well, honey. Scene 6. Chloe and Kelly are driving around in the Escalade like it was the late 90s, early 2000s, y'all. Okay? That Escalade may well have had spinners or something on it. But Chloe, who was 17, is behind the wheel. And God bless Kelly, because Chloe done almost sideswiped about 11 vehicles in this little 2-mile radius that they've been driving around in. Kelly's nerves are bad. Her anxiety is up. And y'all, mine was too, just watching this little scene. Kelly says she thought she was going to get Chloe a Jeep for her first car, but now she's thinking more along the lines of a Honda Civic, like a hatchback. And Chloe says, "Just get me a little BMW and call it a day." And I'm thinking, just get her a little BMX, okay? Get her a little dirt bike or a Huffy and a helmet and call it a day. Y'all, Chloe is dangerous out here in these streets behind this wheel child. Kelly says, "If you can afford a BMW, go for it." Chloe says, you can afford it. And Kelly says, "Now that's where you got it confused. I'm going to buy you the car, but you will be responsible for the maintenance." And this goes to show you that these kids don't understand the value of $1. Baby, do you know how much a replacement key fob is going to cost you on a BMW? Okay, the oil changes, the tire changes, hell, the insurance on them things is sky high. So listen, there's nothing wrong with the 17-year-old having a Honda Civic, okay? Let her prove that she can be responsible with that first. At 17, my whip was a bus token and a transfer. I rode around in an RTD bus with about 100 other musty mofos. And I had to buy my first car back in 1900 and something, y'all. It was a 1986 Mercury Sable. And child, you would have thought it was a Benz the way I was whipping that thing around. I was happy as hell to be riding around in that 12-year-old jalopy. Chloe tells Kelly she already knows what she's going to be doing. She's going to be helping at and running Kelly's restaurant. Kelly says, okay, well, good. Kelly has one restaurant, but she's working on getting her second location open in Sandy Springs. She wants Chloe's input in the hiring process for that restaurant. And Kelly is going through it with Chloe in this Cadillac, though, y'all. Like she's about ready for Xanax. And so am I. Kelly says teaching Chloe how to drive is not for her. And I say, go ahead and enroll Chloe in a good driving school and let them handle it, girl, because the both of y'all in this vehicle are about to give me a heart attack. Scene 7. We're at Drew's house with the kids, and Pastor Jeanette, Drew's mother, has come to check on her baby and grandbabies. Drew and her mom are sitting and talking about this divorce from Ralph, and Drew says they're already 2 years deep into the process, and it's just getting uglier and uglier. She and Ralph are at war. Drew says if her attorney gets recused, they'll have to start the process all over again, and she's ready to be done with it all. Now, as a couple, Drew and Ralph do not work at all, not whatsoever. But Drew feels they're much better as co-parents. Pastor Jeanette says this is confusing to her because Ralph is not showing he has any compassion or love for Drew with the way he's trying to bash her and put her into financial stress. And Drew says, well, have you talked to Ralph about that? And Pastor Jeanette says the only thing I said to Ralph is that the courts made a dumb decision with these living arrangements. And I totally 1000% agree. She doesn't feel the courts took the kids' mental welfare into consideration at all. And the kids are misbehaving badly now. They don't listen to Drew or Drew's mother when they're told to do something. Pastor spends most of the time yelling at the kids to stop this and stop doing that or saying no. And when she can't control the kids, she says it's a problem. At this point, y'all, Drew was crying. She's emotional because she says she didn't know her mom felt like this. So Drew asked her mom to stop because she didn't realize her kids were being affected. They're not the same. And her mom says they're not. So Drew gets up to go get some tissue. And at this point, Pastor Jeanette is crying. And she's feeling bad because Drew is crying and she's upset that Drew is having to endure all of this with Ralph. Drew sits back down and tells her mom, I don't want my tears to make you sad. In Drew's confessional, she says she's been trying to create a sense of normalcy for the kids. And it's hard because the kids didn't ask for this. But I totally agree with Pastor. Seeing Ralph in the basement and Drew upstairs and them switching who's there with the kids every other weekend, the bickering between them. Like I said before, these kids see and hear everything, okay? They know what's going on. They pick up on everything. They pick up on it all. And even if they can't verbally express how they're feeling, they're showing you with how they're acting out. But now, I will say this, and I've witnessed it for myself, kids are resilient. And if Drew and Ralph can get all of this divorce stuff settled, figure out how they're going to be living and get that stable, then eventually, with the proper support, these kids will be able to get back on track. They will. But they do need stability. And this situation here now, it's not stable. So Drew says at the end of the day, she and Ralph will be connected for life. And Pastor says, yes, for the rest of my life until I make heaven my home. And Drew is like, Now, what did you say? No, we're not doing this because you're going to live forever. And I have the last word on this. So Mama gives in and she says, you know what? I will let you have the last word. And Drew says, and she actually sings this. She's like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. I know that is right. Amen. Scene 8. So now in this last scene, Portia and Shamia meet up to talk things through. And y'all, even though there's tension between these two, they're both in sync. They both wear cream and they both damn near have the same style of little handbag. Portia asks Shamia how she's been and Shamia says good. She starts talking about what's going on with her when Portia gets a FaceTime call from Miss Diane. Portia says, I'm going to call you back. Then says, oh, she gave me that face. And Shamia says, who, your mom? And Portia says, yeah. Then Shamia asked Portia how her week's been. And y'all, I can tell Shamia is ready to get right to it with talking about what happened at Portia's event. Portia says she didn't do anything, and before she could finish her next sentence, Shamia says, well, you had your event, so that was a big deal. And y'all, Portia, the look on her face, she's looking kind of scared, like she already knows what's up. So Portia finally says, what's going on? Let's talk, because you kind of had this reserved energy right now. And Shamia starts off by apologizing for not being open about how she's been feeling over the last few years. Things have hurt her, but she's masked how she's been feeling because she handles their friendship with care. She didn't want any of this to come out in the group because she didn't want their input about what she and Portia have going on. Portia says, well, things got back to me because you had already been talking about them. And Shamia says, the difference between you and I is that when you do things that bother me, like talk over my music, make little petty posts, or talk over me when I'm speaking, I don't go crazy about it right then and there. But all of these things feel dismissive and it's hurtful. So just moving forward, when you feel some kind of way, and y'all, before Shamia could even finish that sentence, Portia lets out this exasperated sigh, like she's just over it. And Portia, even in that moment, that right there was dismissive. And this is exactly what Shamia is talking about. Shamia is trying to have a heart-to-heart with her friend, and you sigh in her face. Y'all, I was so irritated watching this. Like, had I been sitting there and my friend done that to me, I would have just gotten up without saying another word and walked away and been done with it. But I'm glad Shamia didn't do that. Shamia says she is not Portia's op, but she's going to be heard today. So she asks Portia, are you tired? Am I boring you? Portia says she's taking a breath because this is uncomfortable. And Shamia says, why is me expressing myself to you uncomfortable? And Portia says, because it's the way. And then she stops herself and she shifts and she says, it's an uncomfortable situation. Now, y'all, I know Portia wanted to say something about Shamia's energy, but what can she say? Because everything Shamia is saying is valid. On top of that, though, the cameras are on Portia, so she's trying to maintain her cool, but she's clearly irritated. In Portia's confessional, she says she's surprised by Shamia's energy, and all of these things have already been discussed, so she doesn't know why Shamia is bringing them back up. But Portia, you can talk to someone about something until you're blue in the face, and you can apologize, but if the behavior isn't changed, it's going to continue to be a problem, and clearly it is for Shamia. Like Shamia told you at the bank dinner, you have to listen, but not to Angela, to Shamia this time. Listen to your friend. In Shamia's confessional, she says Portia allowed Angela and whomever else to come to her with rumors from way back in the day, and Portia ran with it. Yes, Shamia admitted to these women that some of these things happened, but she also told them she and Portia were good and they had moved past it. So she's sad because these same women have said some foul things about Portia, and she shut it down. Shamia says she's there meeting with Portia to resolve this BS and possibly salvage our friendship. And Portia says, possibly salvage our friendship? What is happening? Shamia says you're being very dismissive. And Portia says, Shamia, listen, what I'm trying to do here is have a productive conversation. And Shamia says, if I made a little nonverbal gesture, like sighing in your face, you too would feel like I was being dismissive. Shamia also addresses what Miss Diane says about the apple not falling too far from the tree and how she was hurt by it. And Portia says, well, I'm just telling you what she told me. But Portia, listen, you do not have to run back and tell everything. And especially when it's something that, number one, Shamia didn't need to know. And number two, something that could hurt Shamia. How do you think that would be received? Like Shamia was supposed to just laugh it off and be good? Hell nah. Shamia says to Portia, you told me that was the reason you pulled back from our friendship. Portia tries to deny that, and Shamia says, "You did say that." And Portia tries to deflect by saying she doesn't want to argue. Portia, it also looks like you don't truly care to have an honest conversation about this, or at least not on camera, because of how it'll make you or your mother look. But if these things happen, well, I mean, maybe that's just your personality and who you are. It's not about how you look to these cameras, chick. It's about who you truly are at your core, baby. So Shamia says, well, then what are we doing? I just said to you the other day, I wish we could be how we are off camera, on camera. And you said, oh, they'd have to pay me more for that. So Shamia is damn near pleading with Portia now, like, why can't we just be how we are off camera, on camera? Portia says, why are you trying to argue with me for the show? Y'all, it was at this point that Portia lost the fuck out of me. What in the ever loving hell? Portia is like a spin artist here, y'all. Okay. Shamia is pouring her heart out, being authentic, being real. She's hurt. And here Portia is trying to make her out to be someone doing some stuff for the cameras. Nah, baby, spin that mirror right on around and face it, Portia, because all of what you just said, all of what you just described right here, baby, is you. Portia says, let's not do this. We don't have to. Shamia says, I agree. In Portia's confessional, she says before they started filming, the communication with she and Shamia was already strained. But at this time, she needs her friend. She needs her friend not to talk about something that happened 10 years ago. Portia, I get you're fragile and all that because of this divorce situation, but girl, you are not the only one dealing with something. Shamia has dealt with so much pertaining to Shiloh's health. She's dealing with things too, and you don't think your friend could be fragile? Shamia is pleading with Portia again for them to be how they are off camera, on camera. And Portia says, oh, this is scary, that the show has caused you to sit here and feel like you have to argue with me. In Shamia's confessional, she says that yes, she is a new peach holder. And now that she and Portia are both on camera, it probably doesn't feel good that now everybody can see both sides. Shamia says, you want to minimize my feelings to be all about the show? It's not about the show for me. And Portia says, please, Shamia, this is a lot. Shamia says, what did I do that was wrong for you to say stop? All I'm trying to do is express myself. So at this point, Portia gets up and runs off to the bathroom, y'all. She was crying. I don't know if it was fake or not. And I hear her in the bathroom, no cameras there, just mic'd up saying, you're okay, you're okay. So then she comes out and says, should we just get our food to go? And Shamia says, sure. So the waitress comes over and takes the food away to box it up. And Shamia says, I'm sorry that you couldn't finish your food and that we couldn't get any resolve, because that's what I really came here for. And Portia says, well, I could have eaten my food. And I know you could have, P. Willie, but because I know you love to eat. But that Shamia wasn't talking, so she thought Shamia was ready to go. And Shamia says, I'm just asking what I did wrong for you to tell me to stop. And Portia says, I'm just human, and I'm just a little overwhelmed, and I'm just trying to do the best that I can. So y'all, at this point, they both seem a little bit calmer. And Shamia says, we both are, and we both have things going on. I don't want to upset you or bring you more grief or drama. I just don't want you to be dismissive. And Portia asks, after she'd moved around some silverware on this table, y'all, Portia says, what can I do? And Shamia says, when I'm pouring my heart out to you, don't tell me to stop. I want to feel like you heard me, that you care, and that you really listened. I don't want to feel like I'm being dismissed. And Portia says, okay, got it. Check. I'll do it, okay? Then Shamia says, okay. And Portia says, I don't want to break up with you, Shamia. I just want us to get past this. I don't want this for us. I'm sorry, okay? Then she reaches out for Shamia's hand and Shamia grabs it. And y'all, they're both teary-eyed. And looking at Shamia's eyes get red from tearing up, y'all, my nose started stinging a little bit. And I was like, damn, are my allergies messing up or something? Because, y'all, my eyes started watering too. This scene was very touching to me towards the end. So Portia says, moving forward, if there's anything you want to talk about, let's talk about it. But just you and I, okay? And then Shamia agrees. And Portia says, I love you. And Shamia says, I love you too. Then they get up to hug, and Shamia says, let's put our hearts together, heart to heart. And Portia says, titties to titties. And y'all cannot be the titty twins, okay? Because I've already designated that title for Kelly and Britt. Okay, they've already been awarded that title, and that's it. So in her confessional, Shamia says she feels like she was truly heard, but she wants to know that they'll be able to move forward and be real friends again. And at this point, she just doesn't know. She's open to it and she's ready for it. She's ready to get matching tattoos, y'all. She's ready to go all in with Portia. In Portia's confessional, she says she's never begged so much in her life to stop an ambush before. And I'm thinking, an ambush? Did you really just say that just now? How was that an ambush? Now that was dramatic, and that's adding a little too much sauce to what was actually happening here. I'd hardly call Shamia trying to have a heart-to-heart with you an ambush. So y'all, after that, the waitress brings out the food. It's all bagged up, and Shamia and Portia leave. And y'all, that was the end of the episode. There were quite a few things going on here. The most was at the end of this episode between Shamia and Portia. And I'm hopeful that maybe somewhere down the line, this friendship can be salvaged. But as it stands today, Shamia and Portia still have not resolved their issues. And even though they made up at the end of this scene, they're not on the best of terms right now. You know, I think earlier this week, I saw something on social media where Portia had made a post about Shamia talking about Miss Diane. So y'all, it's all up in the air between these two. Again, though, I'm still holding out hope that eventually they'll be able to resolve this issue. But y'all, let me know what you thought about this episode down in the comments. And let me know if you think Charles and Angela need their own show, because I absolutely certainly believe that they do. Okay, I believe that they do, and I believe it will do well. Bravo, let's get on it. But y'all, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. And until next time, y'all, stay safe, stay blessed, and don't forget to tell someone that you love them today. Love y'all. Peace.